So I just got a text message from Dave Palumbo. I couldn't believe it because I went on the rxmuscle.com message boards. I was over at Project Bodybuilding, over at Muscular Development. You know, I did all the rounds, you know. And Toney Freeman, I'll tell you exactly what Dave Palumbo said because I don't want to, you know, everybody knows that Dave is a very good friend of Toney Freeman's, did his preps for all those years, and they're just very tight. And Dave says to me, I asked him, I said, Toney is promised $300,000 question mark, and Dave says that's what he said. I don't want to show that because we have other messages. That's what he said. So again, now the distinction is that Lee Thompson says, and he said this on Facebook, and I believe I saw this also on a thread started by Joe Pietaro. And by the way, Lee, I don't know you, and as I said on many of my videos, if not all, I have nothing against you. I am just a stalwart. I don't use that word often, but I'm a diehard of the NPC IFBB. Check out ilovethempc.com, by the way, if you want to join our Facebook group for news and contest coverage on all things NPC and IFBB. However, I do not like the fact that a lot of these top pros, like Toney Freeman, are leaving a great thing, the IFBB, where the best competitors in the world compete, where the history is there, to go to a new organization that in all honesty is really promising pie in the sky like others have before, and I don't know if you can deliver or not. Now, up until now, the only people that have gone to your organization are Jerome Ferguson, who I believe was given $5,000, by who I don't know, and now Toney Freeman, who's going to turn 50 years old, doesn't really have any major sponsorships, isn't doing really well contest placings wise, and is now saying he's going to make $300,000. Now, I know you're saying that the NSL is not going to give him this $300,000, that he's going to make it through sponsorships, but I don't know too many sponsors that are lining up to sign, you know, someone that jumped ship from the IFBB and went to NSL, because this sort of reminds me of the PDI days, and in the PDI days, the only companies that I even remember that were even mildly supportive were, I think, Thermolife, I think it was called, and Kaizen. That was it. I understand you have bodybuilding.com, so maybe if you're going to get Toney on bodybuilding.com, but I still don't think bodybuilding.com is going to fork over $300,000 to the X-Man. So, you know, again, I'm not saying that, you know, you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't live up to your promise. I'm not saying that Toney Freeman is going to wind up dumpster diving and eating cat food. All I'm saying is that it doesn't really make sense to me. And it just sounds like you're promising pie in the sky. And I saw Logan Franklin tried to come back and all that, and I just don't know. I just don't know. So I would really like to see where this $300,000 is going to come from, and I hope that, you know, your organization is going to be more than Jerome Ferguson and Toney Freeman battling out for whatever your equivalent top show is going to be. I know Joe Pietaro is a huge cheerleader for your organization. Now, I know that he's a good friend of mine. I know it's going to get him mad, and I know that me calling him a cheerleader maybe to him will be as offensive as Bob Ciccarello calling him a retarded journalist, but I'm not trying to offend Joe. I love Joe and I love Greg, and I don't use the term love loosely. I love those guys. I love Dave Palumbo. I kind of love John Romano, even though we've got beef. But the thing is, I really love the NPC and the IFBB. And I got to tell you something. I agree with Dave Palumbo. I think Toney's making a colossal mistake. I think he's being silly. Dave actually called him silly, or called his decision silly. And, you know, I think Toney might even be delusional if he thinks that he's a real trailblazer like Jackie Robinson, which he actually put, or was put, in that press release. I think that's pretty ridiculous. But I applaud Dave Palumbo for being a real team player for the NPC and the IFBB and saying it very clearly. Toney, you're not doing what Jackie Robinson doing. In fact, you're reverting. You're going back in time. You're hurting yourself. So I think, you know, kudos have to be given to Dave Palumbo, because he's really, I think, you know, drawing a line in the sand and saying, look, rxmuscle.com, Dave Palumbo, I'm with the NPC, I'm with the IFBB. Toney, even though we're friends, you're making a mistake here, brother. You're being silly, and you're hurting your career, and you're hurting your legacy. So I really want to applaud Dave on this one. And I just got to say to Toney, you know, I know that I made a video calling him a has-been or whatever, and I told Andre Botha, I think, from GBO, you know, I really don't believe that Toney is a has-been, but I believe he's a semi-has-been, okay? Maybe that's political talk. Maybe I'm trying to lawyer my way out of it. I'm really not. I'm not trying to even be diplomatic about it. I think he's a semi-has-been. I think at 50 years old, it's going to be tough. You know, people say Bertil Fox. They point to Dexter Jackson at 45 taking second place at the Mr. Olympia. But that's Dexter Jackson. That was Bertil Fox. That is not Toney Freeman. Toney Freeman is not doing well in the placings. I don't think that that's really up for debate. Toney Freeman doesn't have a major sponsorship. You know, I mean, the X-Pain spray is not the equivalent of being signed to, like, you know, 5% Nutrition, or being signed to, I don't know what's a big company now. There aren't a lot of big companies now. But it's not the equivalent to that. And, you know, if his prospects are competing against Jerome Ferguson, who I think is a great guy, but come on. I mean, that's not Kai Green. It's not Phil Heath. It's not Sean Flexitron Roden. It's not Dennis Wolf. It's not Big Ramy. It's not Cedric McMillan. Then, you know, I have to call, you know, I'm not going to call bullshit, but I got to say, Lee Thompson, man, where's this $300,000 going to come from, you know? What sponsor? Joe Pietaro. Oh, yeah, Joe Pietaro. You should give Joe Pietaro some kind of a deal. Like, give him a exclusivity to your contests, or, you know, put a giant banner in his magazines or something, because Joe Pietaro is really doing a lot for you, Lee Thompson. I don't know too many organizations, too many press agencies that are giving your group the time of day. And I personally will never, so no amount of money will do it for me. I'm 100% behind the NPC and the IFBB. That's where the talent's at. That's where the money's at. That's where the history's at. That's where the future's at. But, you know, if, you know, Toney Freeman wants to jump ship and go over there, you know, and win, you know, some Coke can trophy and feel like he's #1 in the world, then I guess he's going to do it, right?